Hello and welcome back to OT the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. I'm Andy Green.
I'm born ready, aka Felix Schultz.
Always ready to pounce.
You know what they say, Andy? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
It's true. That is, was that Jim Dangle that said that?
I know it from RuPaul's Drag Race, but sure.
I feel like it's something Officer Jim Dangle would say.
Mm.
What is happening? Who are we talking to this week?
We are talking to one of my top three Belgian watchmakers, Stijn Busschaert from Méraud Watches. Quick apology to the nation of Belgium and anyone from the Flemish-speaking regions for the pronunciation on any of those three nouns.
Who are your other two from the top three Belgian watch brands?
The guys from Ressens.
Okay, that's one.
Oh, there's two of them.
Oh, there's two guys. Benoit and the other guy. I'm sure there's a third. I'm sure you could have done some research.
One of them I don't like. I won't say which one. Andy, aside from throwing shade at the Belgians, what's been going on in your life?
Now we can throw shade in a different direction then. I've been getting sent a few people, aside from getting sent a lot of Rolex predictions, because it's that time of year. Everyone forgot to do their Rolex predictions, and now they've all remembered a couple of weeks out from Watches and Wonders. I have been sent a couple of times a Unimatic collaboration that takes you all the way to the Rocky Mountains of Colorado.
Oh, is it like some sort of outdoor themed, I don't know, hill watch, some sort of mountain climbing?
I wish that it was with there was a Rocky Mountains bounty hunter show that had 3 or 4 seasons that I think when I had COVID I got really into. Okay. It was just a couple of guys that go around on motorbikes through the Rocky Mountains.
You love a trashy man reality TV show.
I love a bounty. Let me tell you. I'll watch any. If there's a bounty on you, I want to see you get.
Too much coconut flavor for me. I'm not a big fan.
But no, it's not. It is a collaboration between Unimatic and South Park, if you believe it.
Incredible.
Is it?
I mean, they've done SpongeBob.
They have done SpongeBob.
They've done The Simpsons.
Maybe.
I mean, that'd be the GOAT, really, wouldn't it?
Well, I read that the guys from South Park are the highest paid entertainers in Hollywood.
Okay.
Has that shocked you?
I mean, sure.
There's Trey Parker and someone else.
Matt Stone and
Trey Parker, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of well-paid, and I'm sure they're very good at the licensing, and they're selling their image to Unimatic, so it's all those novelty boxer shorts from the 90s.
You're still running them. Anyway, collaboration features Cartman.
What do you think about this watch, Andy? It was a matter of discussion in the old OT Discord.
It, to me, was a little bit of a...
Do you think it's straight fire?
To me, it is... It's a little bit silly. I'm not entirely sure. I did find it sort of odd that, somewhere like Hodinkee has written it up and is selling it. That sort of felt a little bit odd.
That's hilarious. I didn't realize Hodinkee said. I mean, we're getting even more and more. Like everyone seems to be jumping on, like the anime franchises, and it's only Mario, and we've got Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon. Surely this is the next logical step of a beloved franchise IP showing up on a watch face. I don't know. Let people do what they like, and we don't have to buy it, Andy.
Well, it's the U1-EC, which is obviously Eric Cartman. Has Eric on the dial, which I guess is pretty funny. I've got fond memories of watching the show when I was far too young for it, and of playing some sort of desktop game that I don't know.
Incredible.
I don't even know if it was like an officially licensed game or something, but it was one of those.
Probably made using Flash.
Oh, 100% it was a Flash game. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. Limited to 100 pieces. It looks like it's already gone. Hundreds are sold, so It doesn't really matter what we think, but there you go.
You know what? Maybe I'll spot one at Watches and Wonders in Geneva, which, to be honest, Andy, it's been taking up a lot of my time, and I've got a bit of a problem, and I'm wondering if you can advise me on it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me your problem.
Do you think it is cool and or kosher to wear a Pixel watch to Watches and Wonders?
Are you going to have reception? Are you going to have your phone hooked up to the old international roaming?
Oh, I haven't even thought about that. Probably. Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those occasions where I can think there would be genuine utility. I've got 10 calendar appointments, in a half hour. I've got to know where they are. I've got to know where I'm going. I'm certainly going to want to track my steps and keep on top of the old buzzing WhatsApp threads of, work and gossip. You could make an argument that Watches and Wonders is the perfect place to wear a Pixel watch.
Yeah, it's a smart play, definitely for the appointments alone. I'd rock it. I think you should do it.
Do you think I'll get blowback from Patek Philippe?
I'm
I
sure.
don't think I'm seeing Patek, but
I don't think they'll care. But and also easy one just to take off quickly. Throw down when you're trying on all these other watches. It's not about you. It's about the watches.
yes. Okay, maybe I'll do it. I'll think about it, and I'll let you know. Probably from Watches and Wonders. Is it
please
is it too much of a anti-establishment? I'm a rebel move?
Yeah, very 2019. But anyway, good luck. If you don't return, I'll just assume that the watch mafia has taken you.
Speaking of the watch mafia, there is business news, rumored, non-official, entirely unsubstantiated business news. We again chatted about it in Discord. It's amazing. You should get on it. There's talks, Andy, that the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Corporation is interested in buying not just one watch brand, but a whole bunch of them in the form of Richemont.
This is a spicy topic. This is a spicy topic. I'm not sure, Felix. I don't know that I just don't see the world where this happens, because you're talking about, the biggest group in the world buying a very, 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 very significant group. I don't think it would be good for the watch industry. We should all petition it if it does happen. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen.
I mean, maybe they want to buy it. They have to buy it. They only want Cartier, then they sell the rest off. Something like that.
Nothing good will come from it. You're going to want to recoup your money, and you're going to pay a ridiculous sum. So the consumer's going to pay, but also the industry is going to suffer, because there'll be all that, there'll be cost cutting, there'll be consolidation, it's just bad. And imagine having all those groups under one ownership structure. I mean, firstly, no one should be that rich, right? But also just that decision making and the conflict, just that internal conflict, it's just going to be bad for the industry.
Tulips all over again. I think we're on the same page there. It seems like a ridiculous story that you sort of pull out when you have nothing else to say in watch business news. Though there is actually also some legit watch business news. Another brand, funnily enough, is being relaunched by LVMH.
How's that?
It's a very sort of special brand, Daniel Roth. Have you heard about this one, Andy?
I've heard Daniel Roth, but I had not noticed or heard that they were being relaunched.
So, quick backstory on this. Daniel Roth, independent watchmaker, quite famous, did a lot of really important stuff in the 80s and 90s. He's behind sort of modern breguet, is largely down to his, design and mechanical nous. Had his own brand throughout the 90s, which was managed for a period by the Hourglass. They were owned by the Hourglass, and they sort of went dormant. One of those weird situations, I think, where Daniel Roth, the watchmaker, cannot use his own name on his watches. But apparently they're coming back with the backing of LVMH. Why do you think 2023 is the year to bring back aging independent watchmakers?
Why? I think independents, everyone's looking for that next big independent hit, because they can sell them for ridiculous sums. I mean, there's the independent tax, which is happening now. So, the volume actually needs to be less to make a huge amount of money. Everyone's sort of trying to be different and jump on the independent bandwagon from a consumer level. So, I mean, I think everyone's noticed independents are the big thing.
Yeah, and this is a name you can buy. I mean, it's no different to, Montblanc buying Minerva, or someone buying, a name that hasn't been used in 50 years. You're buying the pedigree and the history, and you've already got, LVMH has serious watchmaking capability in-house, and that's probably under-leveraged, to be honest. There's LV, there's a few groups in the brand that make maybe a handful of ridiculous tourbillons, but you could do some proper stuff with a brand like Daniel Roth. I think it's potentially a good move. It's going to be a hot move, but I don't know if it's going to be sustainable in the long run.
It's sort of, you just kind of go, it's a two-way street, right? What's going to be hot, but then also what's going to be drop, and then you've got to, move on. And I don't know. I get nervous when you kind of see this stuff, because it's, you have big brands that, we hear buy up all of the stock of certain, pre-owned models so that they can set the market price. And to me, that's always concerning when, X brand only makes 200 watches and one retailer has 50 or 60 pieces in their safe and is only selling them at what they want to. So I feel like it's open to market manipulation a little bit.
And it's also, for me,
to feel a little artificial, if I'm honest.
Yeah, for me, it's also that lack of originality. Like you're constantly looking at the past. And I mean, Daniel Roth, he's a great watchmaker that should be championed, but I don't know, why? And they are, to be fair, Louis Vuitton are they've started their watch award and they're going to be supporting independent watchmakers. But why, buy someone new, help out, I don't know. Why not buy a Crivia or someone like that? I think that would be a much more interesting move in a lot of ways.
Well, I don't know that Daniel Roth really had they finished on a high note. You know what I mean? It's sort of finished for a reason, and I don't know that sort of 1990s, early 2000 stuff is the right launch pad either.
Anyway, enough talk of high-end independence. Let's talk about really nice and well-priced independence. Let's talk about Méraud Watches, Andy.
Let's do it. Let's get Stijn on.
Méraud Watches is an independent Belgian brand that's been on the scene for 5 years now, which is pretty good as far as an upstart watch brands, goes. And today we have the pleasure of chatting to the founder, Stijn Busschaert. Welcome to OT the podcast, Stijn. How are you this morning?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, this morning for you, this evening for me. I'm doing great. I'm really pleased with the new release. I'm really happy that I'm finally able to share it with the wide public because only my inner circle was aware of the launch. So I'm doing good. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And I currently have one of each in my possession. So we're definitely going to talk about the Antigua, which is the watch you're talking about having recently been released. But as Felix mentioned, you sort of started Méraud back in, I think 2018 was when we first spoke, first saw that there was a Kickstarter sort of happening, and you sort of came out with a bit of a different design. So why don't we start with the year one of your 5-year kind of public history? How why did the brand get started?
Why it got started, it's basically just happened. The thing is, I've been collecting watches since I was 20 years old, so about 14 years now, and I'm just really passionate about them. So every year, I went to visit the Basel World. I went to visit the SIHH when it was called like that back in the day. I met up with a lot of people over there worldwide, which was also the main reasons why I went there. And I think watches have really brought me a lot because I really got to know a lot of places, a lot of people, the ins and outs of the industry by just meeting up and talking to everyone. And in 2016, I just decided to draw up a design based upon, inspired by vintage watches. And when I had the design, I just thought, why shouldn't I ask a manufacturer what it would cost to produce it? And that's what I did. And when I had my eye on the numbers, I decided to move on and just go ahead and take the jump and launch it. And then we launched it in 2018. Was really one hell of a ride up until now, to be honest. But I really enjoyed it. I think you could say it's just born out of passion for watches.
And I find that very interesting that you obviously, being based in Europe, you can go to those sort of trade fairs. It's more accessible for you than for, certainly us in Australia or someone in, Asia or America, perhaps. What was your interest in watches? Was it always in that sort of, I'm going to use the phrase, that micro brand scene, or did you come from, sort of the world of vintage collecting, and that's where those inspirations come from? Where is your personal passion lie?
That's a very interesting question because it all started out with me being 20 and looking for just a nice proper watch. I always had watches. I received one from my parents when I was 6. That was a Swatch Flick Flack. And then I got a Rodania when I was 12. That was a Belgian Swiss brand. And then I was 20, the Rodania broke and I just wanted to buy a proper watch. And I just learned a lot about it. read about it, got interested in history, the technical details, and I bought an Omega Seamaster. And that's, I think that might be the bad part. It really got me hooked on watches. And I have, it's been a long path. And there's not anymore a specific type of watch that I'm purely interested in. I mean, I love contemporary designs. I love vintage watches. I love microbands. For example, I'm wearing a Ming right now.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like all types of watches. To be honest, I have Seikos. I used to have a Patek. I have a vintage Rolex. I have all sorts of stuff, to be honest, and there's not really anymore one specific type of watch that has my preference. I really like all of them because each of them brings a certain story, and that's I think that's maybe my main reason for watches is the story that watches bring. It connects me to the watch.
Yeah, fascinating. And you sort of launched, and I found this really sort of interesting, and something that Felix and I were talking about, was you sort of launched with a model, I think it was called the Bonaire, which in 2018 was more of like a dive focus. Obviously, you had a very successful Kickstarter. I think I read probably 180, nearly 200,000
Hmm.
euros in funding there, launching with sort of two dials, a sort of a dark grey or a dark black and a blue. And I think 2018 was pretty big for that style of dive Kickstarter dive watch. You got the cut through. Another brand that sort of I think you're in the same conversation with is Baltic, who also kind of had a
Hmm.
really strong emergence at that time. What was that like? Because I can't imagine, I imagine it's just a coincidence of sort of coming up around the same time together and making a very big, splash on the dive scene. You've both been, very successful. But so, what was that experience like for you?
That's an interesting question. The thing is, I launched my timepiece in 2018, and then 2 or 3 weeks after it, the Baltic launched, and I was like, okay, the design looks very similar, the approach is very similar. The owner Etienne also has a lot of passion for watches, so I think we approached the market in a very similar way. But obviously, they already had had some steps taken before with their launch of the chronograph. Um, I I think it's interesting because it also opens up choices for people. I tend to prefer to stay small, so I limited the production to 400 units.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason for that was I didn't plan to do it, but I wanted to say a big thank you to all the customers, and I feel it made the watch more special by just limiting the production and saying a thank you to all the customers. Um, I think we're two separate brands with the same mindset, with the same
Yeah.
interest. I think, um, and I really appreciate what they're doing. I think we're just a bunch of passionate watch guys doing their thing and sharing their love for watches.
I think you're right, and I think what we're sort of seeing now is a generation of watch brands that have been founded and that have was started by people who were maybe came from more of an enthusiast or watch love point before a business point, whereas maybe 15, 10 years ago would have been I've worked in Switzerland, I'm going to become a watch brand executive, or and then eventually you do the 10, 15 years career in a watch brand and then start your own thing. I think
Hmm.
now with the sort of increased accessibility of design and production, you can sort of cut out those middle steps, and it's leading
Mm.
to a whole new generation of really sort of I think the word micro brand is inappropriate in some ways because it's a different type of watch brand, and it's such an exciting space to watch. What's your sort of thoughts around this sector of the market, this sort of direct to consumer, enthusiast geared watch? What do you think the future looks like, and how was that sort of the last few years of growth for you?
I think um, I think it's a very interesting time right now because the so-called micro brands. Because I also don't like to be called a micro brand. I prefer to be called like a boutique brand or a niche brand. Um, we focus on a specific market, and I think by those smaller brands we're able to and mainly internet-based brands actually
Mm.
we're able to offer premium products at an affordable rate, and I think that's what makes it interesting. Plus, to each and every brand, there's a certain story, history, or motivation to start up the brand, which is also interesting. I mean, I think it's cool to wear a watch, uh, which I know has been founded by this guy with that interest and who has that approach to the market. For example, the Ming that I'm wearing, um, Ming Thien, he's a photographer, and I
Mm.
mean, it really his design language reflects the way he thinks about watches, the way the lighting hits the dial, for example, and that's what makes these smaller brands super interesting for people that are passionate about watches, and the fact that they're more affordable is, I think, just a big plus. I think we also try to show in a transparent way how we work. Um, so I think it's a very good evolution, and I hope to see more of them. To be honest,
Yeah. So where did the design kind of inspiration and skills come into play? You know, you kind of mentioned offline that this, is not your background. So how do you go about creating, watch designs with, I'm guessing, no sort of industrial design experience? What's that process like for you?
I've always been interested by timeless design objects, be it
Mm-hmm.
cars, be it furniture, be it anything, and also the way they are shaped through time. Um,
Sure.
I have a background by land surveying, and I mean I've got technical drawing background. So I was able to draw it all out myself. Plus, I really
Okay.
have a high interest in the layout of specific things. Um, so it wasn't a big step for me.
Sort of a
Yeah,
different way to use your brain then. So it's sort of drafting. So these were sort of hand drawn sketches then, all of your sort of watch designs.
they start with a hand drawing, and then I
Yep.
draw them out in a program called AutoCAD.
Oh,
I
you
think many
okay?
people know
Yeah.
about the program, the software. Um, that's how it all started. And then I have a friend who's able to create renderings.
Uh huh.
I mean, but very basic renderings in
Yep.
Photoshop, and that gave me the ability to try out colors, try out shapes to get the form of the watch.
And did you have sort of 3D modeling experience, or was that something you learned as part of this sort of passion and process?
I don't have any 3D modeling experience. 2D drawing is what I do, and
Uh
that's basically how I send all my drawings to the manufacturers by a 2D
huh.
design. Then there's a 3D design being made, and then I have it
Okay.
printed, tested, see if the proportions are right. It's really trial and error.
It's a process, and I
Yeah,
imagine
exactly.
some technology. I mean, we've already sort of talked about renders and 3D models, but I
Hmm.
imagine some 3D printing and rapid prototyping kind of helps the process, which is quite cool. So what we should talk about is the models that you sent out to me, the Antigua. So I've got a sort of a cream dial and a black dial. I To be honest, I was very pleasantly surprised, and I messaged you and I said this. These watches are kind of delightful. They're really really nice. Just a pleasant surprise. I was messaging Felix videos and photos. I'm like, Felix, these are great. How much are they? And we were like, oh, I didn't even know the price. I think we were thinking like 4 or 5K. Turns out they're under 2K Aussie, which seems ridiculous. But why don't you tell us about the Antigua and how that sort of started? Because it does feel like a bit of a departure from the Bonaire in terms of, everything. So why don't you tell us about
Hmm.
that?
It's been a long process, and from the beginning, I started Miro, and when I launched the Bonaire, I really had the idea of launching a manual chronograph,
Mm-hmm.
but I really wanted to keep the DNA. So it was important for me to keep the same design language as the Bonaire. And basically, I started off by searching in Switzerland, talking to various movement suppliers about the possibilities, because I didn't want to stick with just a regular off-the-shelf movement, or let's say an automatic chronograph with the rotor removed. I really wanted a proper hand-wound chronograph, and yeah, it's. I think the experience that I learned by going to fairs and just talking to people, mainly over beers, to be honest,
Sure.
brought me a lot of brought me a lot to get in touch with the right people. And I still didn't find what I was looking for until I bumped into someone through someone else. Um, and basically, he knew a source where they had new old stock movements lying around.
Yeah.
And okay, I was super interested. Um, so I wanted to know all the technical details of which movements they had available. And basically, they had quite a few, but the ones with the large number were the Landeron 248.
Okay.
And I knew the Landeron. It's a proper workhorse movement. It's not the most beautiful
Yep.
movement, but it really gave the answer to what I was looking for. It's really what I wanted to incorporate in the whole Méraud language and the story of Méraud. It's I think it was just a perfect fit, and
Fits
that's
in.
how I jumped on them. Yeah.
I mean, the movement is again. I flipped the watch over, sapphire crystal case back, movements on display, and I'm looking in this, going, what? Like, this is it is a nice, interesting looking movement. It's not just being displayed for the sake of it. Like, it is a nice looking movement. I know that was something that jumped out to you, Felix, as well. Was exactly what you've just said.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for me, like, and it is a real point of difference. So, again, we were talking offline, like writing about watches, you get this sort of press release every day, and the one thing that I looked at the watch, I'm like, yeah, that looks nice, that's cool. It's a vintage chrono. I'm like, oh wow, they've got old movements in it. That's the thing for me that sort of really was impressive, because it's not. You've sort of made it sound easy that you just met a guy over a beer and he happened to have a mate that had, a whole truckload of, I'm going to say, 50-year-old movements in his warehouse. But I don't think that's not something a lot of people will be able to do. And I think it's a real testament to your, being engaged in that space. But what I want to know is, these are old movements. What did you have to do to them, to get them ready for use in 2023?
Mhm.
And were there any sort of challenges machining them, or, the tolerance is different, anything like that?
Yeah, well, the thing that happened with the movements, so all of them are disassembled, being cleaned, and then assembled again, and then regulated as well. What I really wanted is to keep the sort of patina they already have created, and I think, Andy, if you look closely, you might see a bit of it.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to have the logo incorporated together with a Swiss flag and a modern font saying Swiss, um, to give it a bit of a more contemporary touch on the movement bridge. Um, so they're ready for 2020, 2023, let's say, but it's still an old movement, and it works like it used to in the day, and that's exactly what I wanted. I hope that gives a bit of an answer to your
Yeah.
to your question.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Felix and I both had different favorites on the colorway, and like, if people that listen and follow us know, we don't rave too hard about a lot of watches these days. We're pretty tired and old, grumpy men in the watch industry. But this is truly, genuinely something that I'm really enjoying. And one of the things I love is the colorway. So I called it cream, but it's called soft sand, and it's a really nice sort of beigey, creamy colorway with some orange, some black, some kind of light blue touches. And it just, feels harmonious. Like these colors feel really, really nice. And you've got it on I think a light tan strap, but it also kind of comes on a green tropic strap, which also plays nicely into this colorway. But where did where did the inspiration come for this sort of design and these colors?
Well, the colors, the soft sand is basically inspired by the dunes of the
Mm-hmm.
Belgian coast. That was my main inspiration because it also has a very light sandblasted finish. I didn't want it to be coarse because it still had to look sophisticated, but it has
Mm-hmm.
very slight sandblasted finish. And then the black dial is inspired by the black volcanic beach in Japan called Miho Beach,
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
with a lovely view on Mount Fuji. Um, the blue and the orange. Well, I just have to say I have a really sweet spot for orange
Mm-hmm.
on watches. I just
Yep.
love how they stand out. I don't know why, uh, but I really love orange on a watch, and I wanted it to stand out, but in a sophisticated and elegant way, which is why I chose to have more like a pastel type of colors, and the blue color is mainly inspired by the shallow waters you often see by the coastlines,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that's how it all incorporated in the design of the dial.
Amazing. So pre-order 100 of each, 200 total. You're sort of saying delivery is going to happen around September of this year, 2023. It seems pretty thoughtful. Obviously, you've had to dig out some of these old Landeron movements. Sorry, seems pretty thoughtful. Seems like there's been quite a few years in between, sort of your first release and now this one. Uh, how much effort and passion has gone into this?
Uh, a lot. I think my wife can attest it. Um, it's yeah, it's been crazy, but it's also crazy how much I love to create a timepiece. And I think that the most fun part of the whole watchmaking thing about Miro is actually the fact of manufacturing a watch. I mean, launching it to the public, it's super interesting because you get a lot of feedback. Selling them is because I have to sell them.
Yeah.
But the main thing I love is just making them, creating them, and having them in hand, and seeing what I've been working on for the past couple of years. Um, yeah, it's been a long while, but I really enjoyed it, and it just had to be perfect. That's also why it took so long. For example, the colors, it's
Mm.
trial and error. It's making samples, putting them aside, making another sample, trying out. Um, yeah, that's the interesting thing about creating them.
Yeah, that orange, by the way, is very sophisticated. That's the perfect use of it. For me, it's like apricot. I wonder. So you've got 200 movements, yeah?
Yeah.
And you've put in a lot of work into getting this beautiful, beautiful design. What are the chances that we'll see an iteration of this watch or a similar sort of Antigua look with a more commercially available movement in the future?
I'm still thinking about it. Um,
Yeah, because I imagine you will sell these without too much trouble.
yeah. I mean the Antigua, it's really a special watch to me. But I've been thinking about working on a similar thing in the same design language. But I also want to respect the fact that the Antigua was made for this Landeron, or the other way around. The Landeron was made for the Antigua. Um, so I'm still thinking about it. It's something that has slipped my mind already, and people have been asking about it as well.
What would you use? Like, is there aside from like a Velger with the movement with the rotor taken off? There aren't too many. Like, I know Salida Works has a nice mono pusher sort of slim chronograph movement, or there's I think Seagull. If you want to go down that route, have manually wound chronographs. What
Hmm.
is there a lot of options in this sort of space, or are there newer options becoming available, or is it
Not at
a
all.
handful?
Not at all. That's also the thing why I stick with the Landeron, because there aren't many options to have a beautiful finished manual wind chronograph. There's La Jouperet who made
Mm.
a reiteration a few years back of beautiful manual chronograph, but they don't produce it anymore. I've been inquiring with Concepto,
Yep.
but I mean to make it affordable, it's really hard to find the right movement. Eterna, well, you have Eterna, the watch brand. You have Eterna, the movement manufacturer. They
Yep.
had a beautiful manual chronograph, but I think they didn't make it through COVID.
Yep.
Um, so it's really hard, and it's going to be a struggle to find the right answer. But I'm going to find something. I have to.
Yeah. Fair enough. Andy, which of these? I mean, obviously the pale dial. How are they on the wrist? Are these 39 mm cases?
Are these 39? Yeah.
Yeah,
40, 40.
40. Okay. What? And you mentioned, Stijn, that you've sort of got sort of feedback from all the coverage you've been getting. Is there anything that people are sort of wanting more of, or would have changed about them so far, or have you hit the nail on the head, so to speak?
Well, so far I've hit the nail on the head. The thing is, with the Bonaire, I really asked people for feedback, and
Mm.
for example, one of the things was the crown. They found the crown too slippery, so I really changed the design. Some people also thought the case design was a bit too thick, or it looked too thick, and I've managed to work on the case profile right now. So it's 13.5 millimeters high, but it
Nice.
feels slimmer than the
It
Bonaire,
does.
which
Yeah.
is 1 millimeter less high. So
Yeah. I don't. It doesn't feel 13 and a half. Like, to me, that's chunky Omega territory.
mhm.
And this sits really, really nicely. And I think the lugs are there, but they're a little on the shorter side, and they're sort of angled down in line with maybe the sort of the kind of
Mm.
clear case back. So it sort of hides a bit of that height. But it feels really nice. Like, it has me wearing sort of a dressier a watch at the moment. Like, I wore it out, and I didn't ask you, but I assume that I'm allowed to wear these around the place. But I wore one out to dinner the other night,
Yeah, go
um,
ahead.
and had the best time. And I sent a photo to one of my mates. I was like, he said, when was the last time you wore a watch on on like a leather strap? So you've got me getting dressy again, which I find quite cool. But truly, I think this is a exciting direction for your brand, and I can't see these 200 lasting too long on your website. But what are you thinking about next for Moreau?
I'm already working on the next timepiece, and if all goes well, I should be releasing it by the end of the year, maybe early next year.
What can you tell us about
I'm
it?
It's a watch.
I'm working on a Bonaire too,
Okay.
because
Nice.
a lot of people have been emailing me about the Bonaire over the past couple of years since they've sold out, and I've just decided to rework
Mm-hmm.
the design, to refine it, find a better balance. There's always things you can improve. Yeah, Bonaire too, and then there's also GMT. I'm thinking about. I mean, I'm not thinking about it. I already have drawn out some sketches. But there are a few things in the works. Yeah.
Sorry, Felix. Do you think this is a price point that you're going to kind of aim to stay in? Like, we see quite a few brands start, and inevitably, as they scale and take on overheads beyond their garage or their spare room, the prices start to rapidly grow up. But I know we sort of had a quick chat about price point when I was in a bit trying to figure out how you're doing it. But you kind of mentioned this is the realm, this is the sort of the segment of the market you kind of want to play in.
Yeah, I want to. I want to, because Miro started as a digital native brand,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to keep it this way, because I mean that's the way how I can make things affordable for my customers.
Yep.
Um, I'm not saying I'm not going to work with a retailer, because I've been approached by some, and I think it's an interesting way to showcase the
Yep.
watches.
Mm.
But I think working with a retailer is also very hard, because I feel they have to speak the same language as I do.
Uh-huh.
And while I was collecting watches, I often had had the wrong feeling about some retailers. Um, so it's hard, and just to summarize, I'm going to keep the focus on online sales, but with the eye on a few retailers.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got a question. It's kind of for both of you, and you've just sort of raised the thought with me, Andy, when you're talking about, you're wearing dressier watches, you're wearing watches off a bracelet. In this sort of world of vintage inspired watches, I think we tend to go into sort of tropes. Like there's a dive watch, there's a chronograph, there's a GMT. One of my favorite sorts of vintage watch is essentially the old oyster, or like the Datejust. That, it's timeless and perfect because it's so comfortable and it's so well sized. I find it interesting that there are less examples of, retro inspired boutique time only watches compared to, divers and chronographs and all that sort of stuff. Is there a reason for that, do you think, both of you?
For
Yeah.
me, my main reason is the watches I create are just watches that I personally love. I love the Datejust,
Mm.
but it's not a fit for my personality, maybe.
Mm.
So that's I think the main reason for Méraud as a brand, that I've not gone that way. Um, I prefer to have a sports watch, a watch I can wear any day, anywhere. Yeah, that's the main reason for me to stick to let's say sports watches.
Is it too boring to just have a simple, three-hand
I
dress watch or dressy sort of casual watch?
I don't think it's boring at all. There's another slight secret. I'm working on a dressier watch,
Yes.
but that's more for the long run. But I've already have some dial samples made. I'm working on them, but it's not a personal favorite of mine.
Big
Um,
plans. I have a question for you. Sort of based on your kind of customer base and the people you talk to and your experience running this brand. Who is the customer? Like, who's buying Moreau?
from what I can see, it's mainly men
Uh-huh.
between 30 and 45.
Where are they in their kind of
And
collector journey? Are they first time? Are they established?
no, it's mainly people who really have a passion for watches.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have customers who have very large collections. I have customers who have smaller collections, but a deep connection with watches. What I notice, it's not first-time buyers, except
Mm-hmm.
for the Belgian guys. A lot of Belgian guys are first-time buyers, and it's mainly because it's just a Belgian product and they want to support it. But overall, I think it's more people that are really into watches, and I think with the Landeron, it makes sense. I mean, the Landeron is a movement that many people know about, but it's mainly people who are really into watches who know about a Landeron movement. Um, so it makes sense in a way.
I will hopefully get a chance to see these watches that Andy is sharing all over his.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be sending them back, so you'll have plenty.
Stan, you know where he lives. Just send the invoice there. Hopefully, I get a chance to see them. They sound great, and I'm sure they, are better in the metal than in photos even. What we do at the end of every episode, Stain, is ask someone for a recommendation, and it has to be a recommendation that has nothing to do with their professional life. So, no watch designing, no watches, something you've been reading, something you've been watching, something you've been listening to, perhaps a famous Belgian cartoonist everyone can enjoy. What would you recommend to people listening?
I'm fond of traveling and getting to know other cultures, and I think that's one of the most important things in my life, that I've learned a lot by traveling and talking to people worldwide, getting to know other cultures. So I would say get out and fly to somewhere you wouldn't fly to, and get to know the place, get to know the people. That's I really like to have connections to various cultures.
Broaden your worldview. Well, you're welcome in Australia anytime. So, Méraud Watches, MERAUD-watches.com. Getting quick. They're on pre-order, $28.14 Australian dollars, which is a bargain. Trust me. I'm an expert. Thank you so much for joining Felix and I. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat, and I look forward to visiting the next time I'm in Belgium.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, Felix. Well, I mean, I'm hands-on with his watches. I think they're great. Everyone should check him out. You should be sold after chatting to our mate Stijn. Felix, how can people support the show?
ot.podcast, Instagram, otthepodcast@gmail.com, messages of platonic love, reviews. Reviews help. 5 stars on Spotify, iTunes. I don't know. I use Castbox on Android. There's one comment on there that I've left that says Felix is better than Andy.
It's nice of you.
That's all you need to know. Maybe reply. I'm waiting. I was hoping someone would notice at some point, but I decided now's the time to add it.
Well, thank you. Make sure you join our Discord. We've talked about the interesting discussions that happen there. Spread the word. Jump on our Instagram, ot.podcast. And Felix, we'll see everyone next week.
See you later, alligators.